Good morning, friends. So, something that I hear people say a lot is, I can't do that. And it's always like a weird mindset to me that somebody just will outright say, I can't do something without having tried or having experienced it. And so, I've often wondered, like, what is it? And then if you ask the question, like, out comes a list of excuses, you know? And the thing that I always think is like, well, is it just because you don't want to do it? Or is it because you really believe you can't do it? And I don't know. And maybe there's a thousand different, like, variations of what it could be. And I don't want to judge that. Because every time I judge somebody for something, I go through it so that I can experience it. And that's like, I don't know if that's a law of the universe for everyone, but it seems to be for me. And I don't want to like judge other people anymore because I'm tired of going through shit that sucks. um, but anyways, so anyway, I just figured I would share my mindset on it, and part of my mindset comes from like things that I learned and then experimented with and then found to work for myself. I treated much of my life that way actually because I didn't have a definition of who I was um, most of my life, other than like I was an athlete in high school and embraced that, but I also wanted to be more than just an athlete. And some of the things that I wanted, I didn't embrace because I thought they wouldn't give me more of what I wanted, which I wanted to ensure that I wasn't going to be poor because I had experienced poverty. And yet, what I didn't like about poverty actually, when I got to the root of it, it wasn't poverty. It's just that everyone I knew in poverty had this, was this hopelessness and this self sabotage that I saw all around me. And I was able to see that in my own family from a very young age. And I'm very grateful for that. Um, anyways, I can't do that. So, how do I approach it? I don't have those thoughts or feelings anymore. There are things that I choose not to do. There are things that I even choose not to address sometimes. Um, that's not often the case, but it is the case from time to time. So it's good to admit that. Um, so I learned, I don't know, I can remember one of my first lessons on I can't do something. Um, I remember my brother and I, we were in Northern California and we lived out in the forest, up in the forest, like north of Redding, even, um, up in the Emerald Triangle, Humboldt County area in Northern California. We had one cabin that we slept in, one cabin that we had our food in, and that we ate in. And yeah, there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you a story about that. And no running water, no electricity. Um, anyways, we had to haul our water up from this mountain stream up this like it was like an embankment that really didn't have a trail built into it. It was just like this, I don't know, like parts of it had to be this steep, right? And so I'm like 4 to 5 years old at this time, and I'm supposed to carry a gallon of water up this embankment, and I'm just not feeling it. And my brother does it, and he's 13 months younger than me, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. I mean, come on. Should we even be picking up gallon jugs of water? But, uh, anyways, he does it, and then my mom begins to like goad me and prod me and like uh, try to motivate me through telling me your brother did it, why can't you, right? And that was a hurtful thing. Like it actually it caused me to be more critical of myself. Actually, it was interesting, just that little encounter and her like kind of like in a way making fun of me or like pointing out, ooh, you're weaker than your little brother or whatever. It like it did something, right, that motivated me to get that water up the hill. So um that's like one aspect of how that's one aspect of how we can like be motivated or like our mind can change, right? It can be done in a negative manner, and many people do that. Like I think of David Goggins actually. He that's how he motivated himself to uh, go through all the things. He was a for 22 years he was in the special forces basically, and then now he's an ultra marathoner and not marathoner, but like he does these like 100 mile, 100 plus mile, 24-hour races, 48-hour races, and he uses like this self anger, self hatred speech to motivate himself to do it. And I used to do the same thing. What let me think of what my mantra used to be in the gym years ago. You're small and you're weak. Do you want to stay that way? And um, granted, I was like a 250-pound beast. Like I could one arm row 150-pound dumbbells for reps, you know? And I could deadlift over 400 pounds for years and years and years, and close to 500 many times. So, anyways, I was not small and I was not weak, but I understand that type of motivation, and yet I also understand that we have I don't know, billions of cells in our bodies um, that hear what we say, that everything that we say it resonates through. So whatever I say that's negative towards myself, it's resonating through my entire body, and it's changing the actual cellular structure of my body. And so I'm very careful with my speech. Then there's this book that I read, the law or the Four Agreements, I believe is what it's called. It's by I is it Don Ruiz? Anyways, I believe it's Toltec Wisdom, and I believe it's called the Four Agreements, and it's worth a read. And it's the power of the word is one of the agreements that says something to the effect of I won't use the word for negative or evil or against myself or others or something like this. And it's a beautiful write up about the power of the word. Um, you know, the creation of the world in Judaism, Judeo Christian, Muslim world was the word. And then also, many yogis, or maybe all yogis, I don't know, believe that the world, the universe, was probably created. This was my stand for my phone a second ago. Was probably created through the word Om, right? And so um, the power of the word is creation. And so our words are very important, just as our core beliefs are important. And so, if you don't believe in the power of the word, maybe spend some time thinking about the stories that are telling us that the word is how. creation was formed, or sound or vibration is how creation was formed. And then think about the power of words in your life and how we begin to match up with the things that we say, and how we motivate ourselves matters. And if I am unaccepting of a part of myself, then that part can never relax. And so there's going to be a tension in the body. So we have to pay attention to the tension in our body and pay attention to the word that we use so that we will be aligned with ourselves and not against ourselves. So as I begin to address the parent-child relationship within myself, the critic, the judge, the enforcer, right? All of these things that reside within myself, and get to like the root of those parent-child relationships. A lot of times memories of myself and my mother, myself and my father, or um, then there are stories that are created of why I feel the way that I feel about myself. Because of certain instances, I created assumptions about who I am as a human based on how other people treated me. But how other people treated me is based on the same thing, assumptions about themselves because of how stories they made, because of how other people treated them. And it goes on and on and on down the line. And this is how generational sins continue to happen, generational curses continue to happen. And that's the look at it in the physical. There's a spiritual element also, um, that has to do with the dimensional, a different dimensional world or different dimensional worlds. But the power of the word crosses dimensions. So we have to be careful with the word. And we can be, though, intentional with the word and create more. And yet, it's also important to be ourselves and not someone that we think we should be. So our word should really just align with where we're at. And there should be some intention to push us forward into more of what we want to be also. So it doesn't do, I see people doing this. I don't think that it does any good to deny or not address certain feelings. I think within ourselves and within our relationships, it's something that's actually necessary to do, is to acknowledge where we're at and to work through issues. So if we're constantly just saying everything's fine, everything's lovely, blah, 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 then we never get to work through issues. And yet people are afraid of that because they realize the power of the word and the creation of the word. But when we're in relationship and we're working through issues, it's as if we're in the spiritual world working out what's injured within us. And to deny that there's injury within us, just because we have the knowledge that as a spirit we're completely whole and we're completely complete, and that there's nothing that we need to change to be more whole or more complete, doesn't mean that we don't need emotional and mental work, which also allows us to open even deeper to the spirit. And so we can't consider that going through a healing process, or we can't have this belief that going through a healing process is going to somehow create more trauma and feel comfortable enough to heal. So think of it like when we're doing the work, it's as if we're in our own little universe and we create this spiritual Well, we all have this spiritual aura, which there's also like a spiritual protection around us. And if we're doing work within this, then we're healing things. We're healing our ancestors. We're healing our futures. We're healing our children. We're healing our parents. When we're doing the work and we're showing up more authentic and more as who we are, we're doing the work. Like in my own family, there are a lot of men who have stayed angry and emotionally closed off, who are actually very sensitive human beings, who have been with women who tend to be alcoholics, tend to be really critical and fairly irresponsible and play the role of martyr. And the men tend to not act in their power and to be somewhat dominated by these women. Over and over and over in my life, I have recreated that relationship in some way. I refuse to stay in that type of relationship, especially with someone that can't see the pattern and refuses to address it. So I have been through many relationships, and yet I refuse to stay in that type of relationship. The interesting thing is that in my family, most of these men stay in that relationship for many years. I'm breaking the cycle, even though maybe I'm starting a cycle of divorce. But I'm breaking that cycle, and it doesn't look pretty sometimes. And that's okay. What other people think of us doesn't really matter. But breaking the cycles matters immensely. This kind of like went in many different directions. And I hope that it makes sense to somebody because I felt really inspired. And this was good for me for sure. It's something that I have to do. It's like, it makes me happy to do it. It's my purpose. Whatever that is, sharing. I know that there was a time where I was looking for this. This is what I was looking for, some sort of like realness and somebody that would just share their example because that's how I learned. And so I'm being for myself who I needed at one time, which is incredibly healing for me. So thanks for listening, and I hope that you are feeling what you need to feel and going through what you need to go through, no matter what that is, and accepting that. And then having intention around that towards imagining more of what you want and having the feelings, like imagining the feelings of what you want, feeling into more of what you desire. Our desires matter. Our desires are what lead us to our purpose. Our desires sometimes bring up issues in others, but that's okay. We're meant, some of us are meant to bring up issues in others. Some of us are meant to stretch others' boundaries. I love stretching people's boundaries. It's part of my purpose. And yet I don't have to do anything to stretch people's boundaries. I just exist as I am, and it stretches people's boundaries. And so that's why it's important for us to have our own voice, because we all have a purpose, and our desires, our likes, our dislikes, the truest parts of who we are, that's our purpose. Our purpose is not to fit in. Our purpose is just to be. That's my truth. You're welcome to use any part of it that you like or disregard all of it. But I appreciate this journey and I appreciate you. I love you guys.